Today we're diving into a file that is genuinely strange, deeply unsettling, and yet something everyone is curious about. Jeffrey Epstein. The moment you hear his name, certain things already start forming in your mind. Scandals, lawsuits, illegal relationships. But today I want to approach this story from a different angle. Because in my opinion, the biggest question mark in the Epstein case is this. How did this man become rich? Who was he? Where did he come from? And how did he end up sitting at the same table as the most powerful people in the world? Because there's a very disturbing reality here. Epstein lived like a billionaire. He had private jets. He owned a massive mansion in Manhattan. He had his own island. But no one can clearly say he did this business. He made money from that. And that uncertainty is one of the things that makes Epstein so terrifying. Let's go back to the beginning. Epstein wasn't born into some aristocratic family. He was born in Brooklyn, lived an ordinary life. He didn't even finish college. So this isn't some classic success story. Yet somehow, in his 20s, he manages to become a teacher at one of Manhattan's most elite schools, the Dalton School. And this is extremely important, because Dalton isn't just any school. It's where the children of the rich, the billionaires, the elite families go. Epstein learned something crucial at a very young age. How do these people live? Who do they grow up around? How does what we call networking actually work? And I think Epstein's first major move happens right there. Because Epstein's real focus wasn't money. It was people. While teaching at Dalton, he connects with a family. And that connection takes him straight into Wall Street. The name he meets, Alan Greenberg, the head of Bear Stearns. Suddenly, Epstein finds himself in the middle of the financial world. But here's the critical detail. Epstein wasn't a traditional banker. He wasn't someone sitting all day analyzing charts or staring at Excel spreadsheets. His expertise was something else, building relationships with elite billionaire circles. On Wall Street, if there's something more important than money, it's access. Epstein realized this very early. He activated a plan with this mindset. I won't make money myself. I will connect with people who already have money. He works at Bear Stearns for a while, then leaves, and that's when the truly mysterious period begins. Because after that, Epstein starts presenting himself as some kind of private financial advisor. He always says the same thing. I work with very few clients, but my clients are enormous names. And that sentence tells us everything. Epstein wasn't doing mass investment work. He reached only a handful of key individuals. But those individuals were already among the richest people on earth. And this is where the most important figure enters the story. Les Wexner. Who is Les Wexner? The owner of Victoria's Secret. A billionaire among billionaires. The biggest factor in Epstein's rise is this man. Because Epstein somehow enters Wexner's life. He takes control of financial affairs, builds wealth strategies, inserts himself into the inner structure of Wexner's world. But it doesn't stop there. Wexner gives Epstein unimaginable privileges. This is absolutely mind-blowing. He gives Epstein power of attorney, meaning Epstein can sign documents and act on behalf of Wexner. Think about it. A billionaire gives someone like Epstein, whose background is far from clear, the authority to act in his name. That is abnormal. And Epstein's ultra-luxury Manhattan mansion also transfers from Wexner to Epstein in a very strange way. This remains one of the most complex points in the entire Epstein fortune. Because the source of Epstein's wealth becomes blurred right here. So the main question, where did Epstein really make his money? Because he lived at a billionaire level, but there was no transparent business. What we know is this. Epstein's financial structure wasn't a normal salary system. It was offshore companies, trusts, complicated tax networks. A machine designed to make the money trail impossible to follow. And that raises the question, was Epstein truly just a financier? Or was he doing something illegal? Epstein's real power wasn't money. It was his network. Look at his circle. Politicians, businessmen, academics, royal connections. So how did Epstein reach these people? This is where social engineering comes in. Epstein analyzed networking like an algorithm. Step 1. Status signals. Epstein constantly presented himself as if he belonged. Private jets, mansions, luxury parties. Because in elite society, the most important thing is, do you belong to their world? Epstein made sure everyone saw that he did. Step 2. He didn't go straight to the center. He didn't walk in on day one demanding to meet the president. He started with the president's advisor, then the advisor's friend. Then the circle expanded. That's how networks are built. You don't enter the center directly. You infiltrate from the outer layers. Epstein mastered this. Step 3. The philanthropy mask. Epstein constantly appeared around Harvard, MIT, funding scientists, attending conferences. Because if you look like that, people think, this man can't be a criminal. He must be a visionary. That mask is extremely powerful in elite environments. Epstein positioned himself as a science-supporting billionaire. But in reality, this was one of his tickets into social acceptance. Step 4. Creating mutual dependency. Epstein's system worked like this. He gives you money. He gives you power. He introduces you to elite environments. But at the same time, a shadow forms over everyone, because once you're seen in the same frame as him, a risk begins. People can't leave. Because leaving sometimes draws even more attention. That's how Epstein's web functioned. And here's the key point. Epstein wasn't selling money. Epstein was selling access. Access to power. Access to closed networks. Access to elites. In today's world, that is the most expensive commodity. Epstein wasn't an investor. He was like an elite concierge. I can connect you with the right people. But behind that plan was a dark mechanism of control. He ran this system for a long time, until journalists, lawsuits, and public pressure exposed everything. But one question still remains unanswered. Was Epstein a brilliant manipulator? Or was he just a small piece of something much bigger? We don't know. What we do know is this. Epstein's story reveals the dark side of the modern elite world. Wealth is sometimes built not with money, but with relationships, secrets, and access. This isn't just a crime story. This is a dark anatomy of how the elite world works. We explored how Epstein rose, the fog around his wealth, his Wall Street ties, how he gained status among elites. But now we arrive at the real issue. Epstein wasn't dangerous because of money. He was dangerous because of the size of his network. And there is something that became the symbol of that network. The Black Book. Black Book sounds like a movie, but it was real. Think of it like an old-fashioned phone directory. Hundreds of names, numbers, addresses, and not random people. Politicians, businessmen, academics, celebrities, royal figures. A database of who Epstein could reach. But here's a crucial detail. Having someone's name in the Black Book does not mean they are guilty. No, it simply shows who Epstein had access to. And that is the real issue, that someone like Epstein could reach so many people. Because think about it. For an ordinary person, reaching the most powerful names in the world is almost impossible. But Epstein did it. How? This is where the dark logic of his network comes in. Epstein's biggest weapon, people's egos. In elite circles, everyone wants to feel special. Epstein sold that feeling. Invitations, private dinners, exclusive environments. After a while, people start thinking, then I must truly be special. And do you know the physical center of this system? Yes, the island, Little St. James. Now it's almost a symbol in pop culture. But the truth is, Epstein used the island as a control center, because an island is isolated, far from the outside world. A place without rules, and places like that are perfect environments for evil people. His system wasn't only the island, the Manhattan mansion, the Florida home, the New Mexico ranch, but the island was the strongest symbol, because it was Epstein's own world. What kind of structure existed there? Let's be clear. What Epstein built wasn't a one-time crime. It was a systematic structure, a network that trapped people, controlled them, protected itself. Who was inside this network? First, assistants. Epstein wasn't alone. There were always people around him, assistants, organizers, pilots, security. Systems like this don't run with one person. You build a structure and it carries you. Second, money. Money always opens doors. People ignore things. People don't question. Some say, not my problem. Money creates blindness. Third, status. Epstein didn't look like a criminal. He looked like a billionaire donor, funding science, attending elite parties. And that mask worked unbelievably well. The most painful question, why wasn't he stopped for years? The answer is disturbing but real. Because elite systems protect themselves. Epstein was surrounded by powerful names. Whether they were guilty or not is another issue. But there was power around him. And power can silence scandals. Power can delay investigations. Power can make people stay quiet. And there was also shame and silence. Victims struggle to speak. Fear, pressure, threats. That's why systems like this can last for years. In the early 2000s, there were many complaints. Cases were opened in Florida. And the result? Extremely light punishment. Which raises the question, if an ordinary person faced the same accusations, would they get the same treatment? Probably not. Epstein was treated differently. Because Epstein wasn't just an individual, Epstein was a network, a system of connections, and everyone inside that system had too much to lose. Reputation, career, power, money. The Black Book comes back again here, because the names around Epstein were his biggest weapon. Sometimes people fear even being in the same room. That's why Epstein acted untouchable for years. But no system is immortal. Journalistic pressure increased. Investigations like the Miami Herald reopened the case. Public attention grew. And finally Epstein was arrested again. But even after Epstein died, the story didn't end. Because so many questions remained. How did so many people not notice for so long? What was ignored? And how many more people like Epstein exist in elite circles? The Epstein file teaches us this. Some people gain power not through money, but through access, and access can be far more terrifying than money. If this gave you new insight, hit subscribe.